Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today's flow, you guys voted for a hip mobility and hip opening flow. I'm going to try to keep this 20 minutes so that if you're here because you're looking to create more space in the hips and work this into more of your regular movement routine, you can do so, and it's not so lengthy that you can't do it on a regular basis. So we're actually going to start face down on our mats, lying on the belly. You can take your forehead and rest it on your hands. You can rest the side of your head on your hands. Let the tops of your feet come onto the floor and just start to focus on the breath and tune in to your body. Staying right where you are. Feel the belly expand and press into the floor with each inhale, and then completely empty with each exhale, trying to lengthen inhales and exhales and slow the heart rate. Our goal for today's flow is to create space in the hips. Where you create space in your body, you decrease and reduce pressure. So starting right where you are on the belly, take the left knee and start to bend and lift it up until your thigh is perpendicular to your other leg, which is staying straight. And then the knee comes to a right angle so that this shin is now parallel to the other leg. You have a few options. You can stay lying just the way we were, head down. You can rise yourself up onto your elbows, whichever is most comfortable for you. Now, this isn't necessarily going to feel very comfortable as we're starting to start this open rotation of this hip. We want both our hip bones to stay pointed down towards the floor as we just sit here with our breath and start to open the left hip. If you have a bolster or blanket or pillow and feel like you could use some support on this inner thigh so that it's not so much gravity pulling down, you're welcome to support yourself there, whatever works best. Breathing here. One more deep breath. And then go ahead and replace this leg. Take it back straight. Put the top of the thigh, that quad muscle, on the floor, and take the other leg out to the side, creating that right angle with the knee, pointing both hip bones down, and maybe making some adjustments on this side depending on which side feels more open or more tight. Do whatever you need to adjust for form here. Again, trying to keep our chest either pointed down towards the floor or forward if you're up on your elbows, and both hip bones trying to make contact with the floor. And then, as much as we can, relaxing into this, using the breath to stay nice and steady and calm. We call this a half frog position but a full frog, both knees are out to the side and bent. And that's a really, really intense stretch, so we don't want to necessarily start out that way. This is a little bit more gentle. After your next exhale, go ahead and take that leg back straight. We're going to rise up onto hands and knees and bring the bum back onto the heels for a wide-legged child's pose. So big toes come to touch. Our bum makes contact with our heels. Knees are about as wide as our mat, and then we crawl the hands forward until head comes in contact either with the floor or a block or pillow or a rolled up blanket. If the floor is feeling too far away, we kind of nestle the belly in between the thighs here, and we feel already how that's going to start opening in our hip joints. So exhale as you lower and fold down towards the floor. Arms and hands reach towards the top of the mat. One more round of breath. Then I want you to walk the hands in about halfway back to your body. Take a big inhale. And then exhale as you lower the body back down to the floor. See if you can sink even lower. Maybe remove that block or that pillow and try to reach the chest and belly closer to the floor. Wonderful. Come back via hands and knees. Place the hands at the top of the mat, about shoulder width. Tuck those toes under and take the tailbone high for our first down dog of the practice. Everything's probably feeling pretty tight depending on when you're practicing. So pedal out the feet and feel them to those hamstrings. This is where we can start to feel just where we're at in our hips as we rock the weight back and forth between legs. Wiggle the bum in the air, and then when you're ready, come to find a little bit of stillness here. You can always bend into the knees as we reach the heels towards the floor and try to find a straight line with the spine. Just here for a few breaths. On your next inhale, lift the right leg into a three-legged dog. Not so high that you lose sight of it as you peek down between your legs, just about parallel with the floor. Toes are pointed down towards the floor, heel is reaching up toward the ceiling. And then as you take your top leg, bend the heel towards the bum, and we're going to take some circles here. So start by dropping the knee towards the floor, opening the hip outwards, and then trying to point the knee up to the sky and drawing big circles with the kneecap. Nice and slow. We're going to find our range of motion here pretty quick with this hip. Our right hip is being mobile and stretching. Left hip is stabilizing us in our downward facing dog. Take 3 or 4 one way. Then you can start circling the other direction. Point the knee up towards the sky. Take it out to the side. And then drop it down towards the floor. Nice and slow. You'll feel your hips activated, your glute muscles activated. Everything nice and strong. When you're ready, extend that leg back out to straight. Inhale here and exhale to bring right foot back towards the floor. Give the hips another little wiggle here in your down dog. As you guessed, we're now going to take it on the left. Inhale to a three-legged dog, just straightening the leg up to parallel to the floor, bending heel towards the bum, and then take your circles, dropping the knee down, open up to the side, up to the sky, and around again. Keeping your breath as even as possible here, as this takes so much concentration. To stabilize yourself, keep balanced, and also move as big as you can with this hip joint. When you've done it 3 or 4 times, take it the other direction. Very nice. And then when you've completed those circles, stretch the leg out long. Big inhale and exhale to float the foot back to meet the right on your mat. Give the hips a wiggle side to side. Bend into the legs. Let the spine move any way that feels good. Taking right leg back to the sky. 3-legged dog, just as we did before. It doesn't have to be high. Bring the knee forward, placing the knee next to your right wrist and your ankle next to the left. into a half pigeon. Left leg will extend behind us, the top of the foot resting on the floor, knee and ankle in line with this hip, and our right knee on the outside of our right hip. If you're here and you're bouncing up and down because this right glute is floating in the air, always an option to take a block or a bolster or a pillow underneath to support you so that you can more fully relax into this. The further that your ankle is from your groin area is going to be more intense on this hip. So you really wiggle around to find where your alignment is, where you can feel the stretch, and where you need support. And then we try to sit up nice and tall, or take a slight fold and place the hands in front of the shin, just trying to keep both hip bones pointed towards this top edge of our mat, and trying our best to stack our weight over our hips, because that gravity is what drives our hips down towards the floor, increasing the mobility and stretch. So when you have found what works best for you, where you need support and modification, find your spot. Inhaling nice and deep, and then exhaling to walk the hands forward. See if you can fold over this front leg. Again, you can take the elbows to a block. You can take your head to the block. You can take your head to the floor if you've got the range and flexibility here. We're working on finding that edge where you feel the stretch and you're pushing yourself, but we never ever want to go past that to where you feel you could be injured or do damage. Inhale if you're folded over. Inhale to sit back nice and tall. One more time. I urge you, if you have placed a prop underneath your pelvis, remove it and see if, as we exhale, you can sink those hips lower to the floor and maybe make contact. Because when I first entered the pose, I could not touch the floor. And now as I sit here, those hips are starting to open. We're creating more space. So see if you can, at this point, make contact with the floor, and then exhale to fold forward once more. Wherever you are, go ahead and remove any props you're using underneath your hips. And we're going to roll onto this right hip, opening the hips up towards the side of our mat, letting the left toes point to the sky. So we're in this sort of half straddle pose. Straddle would be both legs straight and we're folding forward, but we're keeping this leg bent. So heel is about where your groin is. Pull it in as tight as you can. Our hips are facing this long edge of our mat, and then we fold forward over this bent leg. So we're going to get that straddle stretch, but instead of being so intense on both sides at once, we're focusing on one at a time. Again, you can bring your block over to support your elbows, or you can reach and fold all the way towards the floor, whatever works best. We want to, again, focus on keeping a nice long spine. So I'm reaching my chest towards the floor as opposed to diving my forehead down and curving out the spine. As much as possible, keep a nice flex in this left foot as the toes point towards the sky. It keeps the entire leg active, including this hip. So as we stretch it, we're keeping it an active stretch. And in the long run, will bring you that flexibility and mobility a lot faster. A few more breaths here. See if you can sink a little bit lower, fold it over this bent leg. On your next inhale, sit up nice and tall. Continuing moving in the direction we just came. We're going to face the back of our mat, keeping the straight leg straight and bent leg bent, but we're taking this knee up and over to meet the other knee. Now you can stay just like this. This is called half hero, where only one leg is bent, heel on the outside of our bum. Now if this is intense, or you have knee problems or issues, or you're feeling any discomfort in this area, tuck that heel underneath the bum to relieve that pressure. But if you can, go ahead and play around with half hero. Again, we're keeping left leg nice and flexed. We're hinging from the hips, and now we're folding over both legs. Knees are as close as possible as we reach for the floor. Just for a few breaths here. As we come to sit nice and tall, inhale to come out of the fold. See if you can now switch back and face the top of your mat again without using your hands for support. So rock your weight onto your tailbone, lifting this knee up, coming back through this half straddle, and then see if you can use that momentum to come back to face the top of the mat. Place the hands next to this bent knee, tuck the left toes, the back toes, and lift back up into your three-legged dog. Right leg shoots towards the sky. Inhaling and exhale that foot down to your downward facing dog. Wiggle the hips around and see if you can at this point feel that difference in the right and left hips. Hopefully you already can. Inhale, left leg to three-legged dog. Exhale as you bend the knee and bring it forward to your half pigeon. Knee by left wrist and ankle by the right wrist. And then settling into your half pigeon on this side. Taking any props you want to use and making sure we're aligned so hip bones are facing forward. And the top of my foot and my kneecap are resting on the mat. When you have wiggled around and found your alignment for your body, inhale, sitting up nice and tall, and exhale to fold forward. If you're folded forward, inhale to sit nice and tall. Inflate the lungs completely, and then exhale to see if you can sink down a little bit lower to the floor. Maybe remove that prop under your hip. See if you can make that contact and feel that space we're opening up. Inhale to come back to vertical. Open up the hips, rotate this back hip open so that the right toes are now reaching towards the sky, and we're coming to our half straddle here. Left ankle is right in front of the groin, sitting up nice and tall, and we fold forward. Exhaling into the fold, reaching the chest and belly button forward, trying to keep these hips on, both glutes on the mat. Right toes are flexed and pointed up towards the ceiling. Make sure as we hold these static positions, we never ever hold the breath. Always conscious of deep inhales and exhales. Inhale to sit up tall, and then continue turning towards the back of our mat. We lift the left knee up and then place it down next to the right knee. Maybe taking that half hero pose, keeping the heel on the outside of the bum. Sitting up tall here, again hinging from the hip and folding forward. One more round of breath in your fold, nice and deep. And then as you inhale, Sit up nice and tall. Maybe take hands to the sky and challenge yourself to rotate back without supporting yourself with your hands. So rocking the weight towards the right so you can lift up that left knee, open it up towards the side of the mat, and then continue turning until you face the top of your mat once more in your pigeon pose. Place the hands down, tuck the back toes, lift left leg all the way back up to the sky, three-legged dog, and exhale it down to downward facing dog. Amazing. Wiggle out those hips. They should feel so much more open. Take a few breaths here if it feels good. If not, go ahead and drop the knees to this wide-legged child's pose once more. Keep the big toes together, sink the bum back, and rest the head on the floor or on your block, pillow. And notice if this feels more open than it did the first time we were here. Feel free to stay in your child's pose or even rewind and repeat and do that entire sequence again. Thanks so much for flowing along with me, and I'll see you next time.